I don't have to read from a sheet. Everyone deals with volunteers, and everyone has this time where a volunteer appears in front of you. And what we found is, and what I found when I started volunteering is, the first time you meet someone is that first impression really does make an impact on the volunteer. Whatever you do, whatever you say to them, that first time is very, very important. I speak to a lot of volunteer coordinators, and what they said to me is that they're so busy doing their jobs that they don't really have time to spend with volunteers, going through every part of what a volunteer needs. But what I think we find is that the best volunteers are the ones that buy into you and buy into your organization. So spending that time with a volunteer, going through just very, very simple things about introducing them to the members of staff that they'll be working with, introducing them to the area that they'll be working in, their equipment. Does it work? Do they know how to use it? Introducing them to fellow members of staff. One thing when I started volunteering, one thing that I loved is that I knew I had someone to go to if I had a problem, because problems occur with new volunteers all the time. So I had a named member of staff that I could go to and say, hey, listen, I'm having a problem with this. Can you help me? Now, during our process of getting volunteers, for COVID-19, when we started this process, was that within 24 hours of a person saying to us that they wanted to volunteer, they had received a phone call from us, from me or from Laura. I know Karen spoke to people as well, and others did as well, just saying, thank you for volunteering. Thank you for putting your name forward. On the same day, they received an email from Laura, which had 5 parts into the email, which Laura will take you through in a bit. But the one thing that stuck in my mind was that everyone I spoke to was amazed how quickly we came back to them. Like I said, it was certainly within 24 hours. And it makes a huge difference when the volunteer feels that they're important. I don't know, the bigger organizations will have training packs, will have all kinds of information. But I think it's so important for that first time that we do things that people remember. That volunteers actually, that you connect with your volunteer, whether personal level, whether on a business level, that you find out more things about your volunteers. You find out what they can do. You'll be amazed when you speak to a volunteer, the past, because everyone's got a past, haven't they? I was hoping someone would say yes there, but no mind. Everyone has a past, and it can be very, 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 very varied. But the person who's sat in front of you may have more skills than you realise, and may have more kind of aspirations than you realise. They might be able to help you in far different ways than when they first turned up to see you. So it's important that you speak to your volunteer, that you take time to speak to your volunteer, whether that's you take them out for a coffee or whatever you like to do. But take time, get to know them, get to really, really know them, get to know all the ins and outs, whether, like I said, over a coffee or whatever. And you'll find out that the respect that they have for you grows. But I think it goes further than that, because when they finish volunteering with you, their impressions of the organization go with them. So the impressions of you and the impressions for their people, their friends, their family, when questions come up, goes with them. So they'll all have a fantastic opinion about you as people and your organizations. So tell them about your organizations, tell them what you do, tell them the impact that they will have themselves by doing their roles. Does that make sense? I'm getting lots of nods. So I've already said things like a warm welcome. I don't need to tell you how to do a warm welcome. Like I said, some information, some background information on your not-for-profit organization or charity. If you're a charity, just explain what you do. Explain what you do in the community. Let these volunteers buy into you. A task description of what your volunteers, what you want them to do. So many times I hear from people who say, oh, well, I walked in and I was kind of just wandering around. I didn't know what to do, or just felt like a useless person there or whatever. The best companies are the ones that give people a proper role description. So they go in and they're taken through what is expected. And like I said, within that will be a person that they report to for any problems. A tour of the facility or grounds. Obviously, they need to know where things like the fire exit are, or when the fire exit is, or when certain things happen in your building, like on a Tuesday, action together and have a walk that we go on for half an hour. Well, I think we used to, didn't we, Haley? But anything that your organisation does that and it's like second nature to you, obviously they won't know. So let them in on the things that you do. I've already said, if you can, get another staff member or another volunteer who's more experienced, give them the responsibility of helping them. Because, like I said, I hear the answer all the time. I'm too busy doing my role. So let them speak to somebody who can help them. A handout kind of sums it all up. If you can give someone a handout that says, okay, in the case of this, do this, in the case of this, do this, and all the information that they need, whether you call it a volunteer policy, whether you call it a handout, whatever you describe it as, but a document which explains this to everyone is, in our view, a must. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. I don't think I've been anywhere near 15 minutes, but never mind. Does anyone have any questions about what we've just talked about?
Not a question, Phil, but more just kind of, I think it is really important what you were saying about making sure you tell them everything about the organisation, even the little things that you think are second nature. I think I would add to that as well is that letting the other staff and the other volunteers know there's a new person coming in, because often people don't know who they are and what they're doing. So sometimes I've had experience people haven't helped people because they're not quite sure what their role is, and someone else will be dealing with that. I think that goes a long way in helping people feel part of the team. People know what they're doing and know rather explain themselves all the time when they feel a bit nervous.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point, Karen. Being explained who you are to the different members of the team, especially for people like me who don't have a memory. I still sit in my car, and people think I joke about this, but I sit in my car and I do not generally have a memory. And in my car I have a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper is written as who sits where. So before I go into the building, I have a look at this. So when I walk in, I can confidently say, well, that's Sarah and that's Haley. Because if I just had a look at them, I won't know who they are.
Yeah. And I think I had a similar experience. I used to work remotely and the office was in London, and every time I end, people move desks and I think, oh God, who's who now? And it's really disorientating. So I think people being aware of who you are as well as you knowing who they are, it's a two-way thing, isn't it?
It is. It's a very important thing. Any other comments or questions? Anyone who want to kind of raise one of them funny icons and wave them at me or anything like that? No? Okay. So now I'm going to pass you back to Laura, and for the next part of the course. Laura.
Thank you, Phil. Right, okay, so before we look at the next slide, I'd like to take you through our emergency volunteers process that we've got at the moment during the COVID-19. And then, as Phil said, I'll explain some of the documents that we send out in our volunteer welcome pack once we've spoken to the volunteers. So firstly, volunteers sign up on our COVID-19 specific form, which can be found on Action Together's website. Their details then go through to a main database, which is for Oldham, Rochdale and Tameside. Then I just go on a daily basis and pull off the details for the volunteers who have stated they specifically want Rochdale to volunteer in Rochdale or the surrounding areas. Then I transfer their details onto our own COVID-19 response spreadsheet, which our team in Rochdale have access to. Each volunteer then gets an initial welcome email, just informing them someone will be in touch within 48 hours. Team members then contact each volunteer and we run through a few just basic questions just to get to know a bit more about them circumstances, like just to confirm the area they want, if they drive, if they're comfortable doing deliveries or they want to work from home, if they've been DBS checked, and more importantly, their availability for volunteering. We then advise the volunteers they'll be receiving a volunteer welcome pack via email. And like Phil said, from the moment they register to the moment they receive that welcome pack email, it's always, majority time is within 24 hours. Only on the odd occasion, if we can't get in touch with them the first time of trying, it'll be within 48 hours, which is very important because, like Phil said, being prompt with the volunteers does keep them interested, and it lets them know that you do want them, you need their help, and you appreciate the time. So now let's look at the slide, and I'll briefly run through the documents with you. Should be slide 5, I think. Yeah, slide 5. Right, so all these documents, it's going a bit crazy.
I think there's a slight lag, so it's quite hard to tell when you move your stuff, so forgive us.
No, thank you. Right, yeah, so all these documents, once the volunteers have been contacted on the phone, each volunteer will receive a volunteer welcome pack, and it includes the actual volunteer welcome pack document, which is like 9 pages long, a volunteer agreement, the volunteer details form, a volunteer role fact sheet, and also a volunteer wellbeing support offer. Now, copies of these we can send out and share with you afterwards if you'd like to see in more detail. But I'll just go through a couple of the documents first. So the volunteer agreement is just a basic agreement between us and the volunteer. So it's we Action Together will do our best to introduce you to how the organisation works, to provide regular meetings with your volunteer coordinator, which is very important in case you have any concerns, to respect your skills, dignity and individual wishes, to pay your travel, to consult with you and keep you informed of changes, to ensure you against injury in case you suffer anything or cause due to negligence, to provide a safe workplace, to apply our equal opportunities policy, and to apply our complaints procedure if there is any problem. And then there's just a short section for the volunteer to fill in the name that they agree to work reliably to the best of their ability, follow Action Together's rules and procedures, including health and safety, and follow all public health guidance in relation to COVID-19 to keep themselves and others safe, which is very important. If someone's got the slightest bit of illness, then obviously they have to stay away. They can't run the risk of the people getting unwell, basically. The Emergency Volunteer Welcome Pack it's 9 pages long. It's like a contract you'd receive if you was going into employment. There's a few sections in it. Thank you and welcome, induction, training and support, so any training they may need for the role, that we will offer them the training, keeping others safe and well while you volunteer, a summary of Action Together's other policies, and dealing with any other problems. Now, everyone who signs up will have a volunteer coordinator, so any issues they have, they can contact the volunteer coordinator. And then there's a volunteer details form, which is basically just their details, an emergency contact, obviously in case of an emergency, ID they're sending back, and also their bank details in case they do incur any expenses that they may need to recover. And the final one I'll go through is probably one of the most important ones. It's the Emergency Volunteer Wellbeing Support Officer. Because when volunteers sign up, you want to make sure their wellbeing is looked after as well. And so basically it's just Action Together work jointly with Living Well and colleagues from Rochdale Council and Link for Life to support volunteer wellbeing during this time. So there's a few things that are on offer for the volunteers. They can access a daily 6 p.m. support check-in call Monday to Friday, where they can join a Zoom and have a chat one-to-one with any concerns, questions, ideas, suggestions they have. There's an email address available to all volunteers, which is specifically for them, for any questions, concerns they may have. And then finally, it's about us sharing good acts of obviously volunteering on our Facebook and Twitter. And just let them know that we will be sharing them. Yeah, so the process is really quick. It's always within 24 hours on most occasions. As well as once all volunteers have received their welcome pack, I do send the details over to the council, who then look at signposting volunteers to local response hubs. Some of these roles would require training, which nicely takes me on to the next slide. Training, please. Thank you. So I'll quickly just run through this list and we can remove the slide and I'll just stay a bit more in detail. So yeah, training. Do the volunteers need training for the role that they're undertaking? Look at what they may need. Any in-house training that would be on offer to them. There's other organisations like ourselves, Action Together, RCT, Rochdale Training Solutions, all offer free or at discounted rate training. And there's also 3 online training available online. Remove the slide. Right, okay. So firstly, look at the role. Would the volunteer benefit from training for the role? Most organisations and groups that I'm aware of would train volunteers in-house. So like when I started back in October for Action Together, Phil trained me up on the volunteer side. And then also Hayley trained me up to do the fortnightly newsletter. So in-house training, I find, for me anyway, I was very comfortable doing in-house training. So when you start somewhere, sometimes it's a bit uncomfortable being sent out to other training. But we, Action Together ourselves, we have a lot of training outside of COVID-19. We would do like safeguarding, child protection, intro to bid writing, pre-volunteer courses, which Phil would sort of run and I'd sort of tend to provide support, and volunteer database training. All our training is free. It's open to members. You need to be a member, but membership is totally free also. I think quite a lot of you, most of you are members, we already have Action Together. But all our details of training can be found on our websites and you can sign up on there also. Obviously during this time, that training's put on hold. So at the moment we're doing these hashtag Wednesday weeklies, which are great. Sarah's brilliant at these ideas. So hopefully we'll be covering a different topic every week. We're hoping to get as many people in to obviously show different sorts of training for you. Other organisations offer training, like RCT. Now RCT do list training on their websites, but again, during this time, it's slightly different. But if you follow them on Facebook and Twitter, you are very likely to be one of the first people to find out about the training because they put a lot of it on there. And it's also a good idea, if you don't already know RCT, to maybe introduce yourselves to Holly or Alona, because they're the ones that kind of run the training and organise it, and you'll be like one of the first people to know what's happening. Social media plays a big part. There's quite a lot of things hit social media, sometimes before they even hit the website. So it's very good to be following these people on there.
Yeah, social media is our biggest key for getting hold of people because it's more up to date and relevant, isn't it? Rather than a website update. Yeah,
people tend to head to social media. They don't go on the websites. It's all social media contacts, what they see on there. So it's the best thing to do. If you're not following RCT, follow them. Also Action Together. Another one, Rochdale Training Centre. Now they don't tend to do free training courses, but we had them at one of our VSAN meetings not so long ago, as Phil reminded me yesterday. And what he tends to do is, if they have a course for like 15 people, but not all the places are taken, say like there's 10 people on it, the other 5 places he will offer out for free. But again, follow them on social media because that's probably where you'll find that information out quickly. So again, social media is the best way of finding free training courses. And I think, unless anyone's got any questions, Have I missed anything, Sarah?
Oh, no, I don't think you have. I was just going to say that I put in the chat that everyone will get a copy of the documents we've talked.
Yeah.
So that you can see what we've been sending out. And then I was also just updating the chat to say that RCT, because I know we've got a few people that are outside of Rochdale here with us today, that RCT, Rochdale Connections Trust. So Alona, you work for RCT. I'll put a little link to their website, but also to chat to Alona. Do you want to just talk about what RCT do?
On the spot. I'll put my video back on. I'm working from home and I've got a 4-year-old, so I was a bit conscious of putting my video on. RCT, we deal with a lot of domestic abuse situations. So we work with ladies who are in this situation. We work with male perps. We work with ladies who've had children removed due to different situations. We also run children's programs, so we have the mentor program, so volunteers run the I run the mentor program, but we have adult volunteers who work with our young people in the community, as well as we run the Happier Children courses in schools, which is therapeutic led sessions, giving children the safe space to open up about anything going on at home and coping with any anxieties and things like that. What else do we do? We've got counselling, so we offer different counselling. We have trainee counsellors and qualified counsellors, so we can offer some counselling for free if any of the service users are on any of our other programs. But we do have a waiting list as well for anyone who is working and can afford to pay a donation for counselling. And we've got a back to work program as well, which is the Progress Project. John runs that, and he's just recently moved that online as well. That's what I can think of off my top of my head. We run intermittent sessions like Respectful Relationships, which we'll deliver to any of our service users, but we'll also go into schools. And I think it's year 9 we deliver to at the minute and things like that. But yeah, just drop me a message if anyone needs anything or more information. We try and use social media, as you've said, to promote everything, because it's just the easiest way, and it's what people kind of drawn to these days. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much. That's loads of information.
Just on the thing of training and social media, if you're a bit of a geek like me, who checks out social media kind of 24 hours a day, you find some amazing things on there that are free. There was a graphic design course that was given away free. I think it was worth 45 quid or something like that. And obviously, we would have known nothing about it. And I think it was Steve Kennellan from Hamer Boxing Club who had been forwarding the post or whatever. But you do find out some amazing things online that that you kind of enables. Oh, I'd like to do that or whatever. So it's always worth checking out. RCT are great, but there's a load of organisations. Feeder at RBH, I know they do lots of training. Social media is a funny thing, because many people who I'm speaking to now probably won't run your social media websites. But it's always good to identify a few websites that you should follow. Now, obviously, I'm going to say follow Action Together, because you have people like me who are up at all hours putting things on the Action Together website saying, look, you can do this free training, or you can do that free training, and we'll advertise any training that comes our way. We will put it out there. So it's well worth you looking at some websites to find out what's available. And the better you know your volunteers, and what training they want, you might be able to pick up some really good training for free.
Thanks, Phil. Yep, that's everything for me. So I'll pass you back to Phil, who's going to take you through the final part of today's session.
Many thanks, Laura. We're going to talk about flexibility now. Now, I'm not going to ask Hayley to bring this slide up because I think we can do this without a slide. Can I ask you all a question? 2 months ago, would you ever have thought we'd be doing a Zoom training on retaining volunteers in the Rochdale Borough? Would you ever have considered we'd be doing this? Would you ever have considered that if you want an appointment with a doctor, you've got to phone them up and you'll either have a video call or he'll just ring you back? Would you ever have considered that walking around Morrison's, you've got to follow arrows and keep 6 feet apart from each other, or 2 meters or whatever? Things have changed massively. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's all about people being flexible. If I look at the pictures of the people online at the moment, how many of you are now doing a different role to what you were before COVID-19? How many of your organizations are doing different services than what you were before COVID-19? So isn't it right that the new norm, or whatever we call this period that we're going into now, and there's been loads of little explanations about, you know, these buzzwords or whatever, but we'll stick with new norm. What's the new norm going to look like? Because if you can tell anyone, please tell the government, because they don't know. But building back better. Thank you, Sarah. That's another one. Building back better. But flexibility now is a key word, isn't it? You know, I've been working now from home for 10 weeks, and who'd have thought that? Who'd have thought you could, you know, I mean, obviously now I am got a dining table because it's got computers on and all kinds of stuff, but we're working in totally different ways, and the volunteers have been working in totally different ways. So when we go back to whatever the new norm is, we've got to look at flexibility as a big issue now. We've got to look at of volunteers who may not want to. I mean, social isolation at the moment is 6 feet, 2 meters, whatever. How long is that going to last for? Well, I suggest it's going to last for as long as until they find a cure for this, because they're going to tell people to isolate or to keep apart. So many things that we used to do, we won't be able to do anymore, or we've got to look at different scenarios in how we do things. Now, how many, like I said, working from home is becoming the new norm. Everybody kind of wonders what the pictures are like behind them when they're online. How many of your volunteers can work from home? What do you volunteers do? Can they do that from home? Look at the hours that they work. There's so many aspects now that will change. Like I said, new roles have been created, and going forward, I've no idea whether your organizations will carry on these new roles. Everyone seems to be into sending some kind of food parcels out. Yeah, how long will that last for? No idea. But we've got to be really, really open with our volunteers and suss out, can they do things from home, or can we work out a different way for them to do the roles that they've done in the past? Do we have to meet them in a coffee shop, or can we chat to them online? Can we do a Teams meeting with them, with the rest of the team? Who's thought about the new norm and how's it going to look? Hands up. Who's thought about it? Okay, so if I pick on somebody, Karen, you put your hand up. What have you thought about the new norm? What do you think the new norm's going to look like?
I'm not sure exactly what it will look like, but I think there's opportunities, like you say, for some people where a virtual meeting would be better for them. I think we all feel more confident in doing that and how that looks, because that's all we're doing right now, isn't it? I think we still have to have face-to-face stuff, obviously, and when you get to know somebody, it is much easier when you talk to them. But I know some of the entrepreneurs that I'm working with at the moment, there's been about 3 new ones that have come on board during the coronavirus pandemic, and one of them I've spoke to on the phone, and one of them I've spoke to on Zoom, and I felt I got to know a lot more about her by using Zoom than I did on the phone call. It isn't as good as face to face because you don't get those nuances in body languages and all those bits that you pick up face to face. But I would have never have met a new entrepreneur by Zoom before, just wouldn't have done it. Whereas now, rather than waiting maybe 2 weeks until we can both get a slot somewhere and work around their childcare or whatever situation they've got, I've been much more likely to do a Zoom meeting with them now. So it's part of my toolbox. And before, even though I use Zoom for other things, and I have done for a number of years, it never occurred to me to use that because that wasn't the way we did things. So it's not sure what it will look like exactly, but I think of gaining new tools I will use.
Okay, Feeder. How do you think you're kind of what you're doing now, and how you see yourself kind of using Zoom and what have you? How do you think things are going to move forward?
We have so many volunteers, Phil, and it's a conversation, funny enough, we had this morning. We're going through a mini team restructure, how my team is going to start really responding to what we're doing with the volunteers. And I think a lot of it now is using Zoom to do that training, something that we won't have done before. I will be honest, I will miss that face-to-face contact, but certainly going forward and keeping an eye with COVID-19 and the practices, the team are becoming a bit more comfortable. And to, like you say, solutions found to the pandemic, it'll be Zoom. It'll be Zoom that we're going to be involving our volunteers. One of the projects that we are involved in on a face-to-face is the pantry projects. So we do quite a lot of intense training on social distancing and advice to our volunteers to keep them safe. So, but yeah, going forward for the foreseeable future, it'll be this.
Okay, let's. I'm feeling in a picking mood. So Donna, how you're on silent at the moment, right? So
I'm okay now.
Yeah.
So big shift for us with regard to volunteers, because all our volunteers mainly deliver home visiting and group support. So it's face-to-face, one-to-one, so it's massive for us. We have a big training program as well that we have to follow from Home Start UK. So it's adapting the whole lot of that to see how we can deliver that online for volunteers. 2 issues. It's about how do we retain those volunteers we've already got and we've trained who are now not able to do any visits. So it's thinking about that piece of work, and also the existing volunteers and new volunteers, just all about new training. And then we're thinking about recruiting volunteers to deliver virtual training, virtual support for families. But it's very new and very fresh, and it's obviously thinking about the safeguarding issues with support really vulnerable families. It's not something that we could just do a very quick induction. We have to do DBS checks and things like that. So we're just having to refresh everything. And Jess, who's with me today, she's got a task ahead for the parent-infant mental health training as well. So that's like advanced training. How's that going to work, doing that virtually? And I'd say a few of our volunteers are not really up for Zoom. Some are and some are not. I'm concerned we could lose some really good volunteers during this time. It's not easy for us to revamp everything because we've got strict guidelines from Home Start UK. But as far as everything else is concerned, we're using Zoom an awful lot for the team. And we have started a group Zoom volunteer session. I don't know how many, Jess, how many attended that? Do you know?
Yeah, I think there was 4 of them that attended, so not many.
No, 4 out of 22 volunteers.
But we did talk on that Zoom call about the WhatsApp group quite a lot that we've set up on the parent infant mental health side of the volunteering. So we've actually got a WhatsApp group for the parent infant mental health volunteers. That's working really well. We're sending bits of training through that that they're able to access, and it's just keeping them thinking about the parent infant mental health and thinking about the families at the same time as us being able to revamp all the training to be able to enable them to have that training.
That's fantastic. Sarah, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm just a bit aware that some of us don't know who we are. We didn't, and I didn't want to do introductions over recording. We didn't manage to do the introductions before that. But if you could just tell us a little bit about when you pick on people, Phil, if then they could say, you know, I'm Donna and I work for, that would be great, just because I don't think everybody here knows each other.
Okay.
So it'd just be useful to know. I know we're still recording, but it's just good to mention just quickly your organisation would be useful.
Okay. So carrying on that theme of picking on people, hello, Carol. So do you want to just tell us kind of who and what and how COVID's affecting you and what the new norm will be?
Right. My name is Karol. I work for a charity, Europia, which support Europeans living in Greater Manchester. I was just listening what you all had to say about the volunteering, and when I think about my organization, I started working for Europia about a year and a half ago, and I felt like we didn't really have one person who would look specifically after volunteers. And somehow since the lockdown started, this kind of bond between the employees and the volunteers got stronger. And we realized that we are more dependent on volunteers and than ever before, and we are more in need of volunteers. So we kind of in the process of creating this role, and probably that will be me who will be responsible for looking after volunteers, and probably that's why I've been told to join this meeting today. And so I have to say that for me, the Zoom also completely changed the communication, and I'm looking at the positive aspects of it, and not only between the employees and the volunteers, but even between the team members. I feel like we're more connected than ever before, because with many volunteers we could just work via email or a phone call. Let's say there has to be some translation done, etc., because majority of our volunteers are people who speak other European languages, so we always need somebody who will translate different document or help to communicate with clients. And now and we never really considered to, for some reason, to have a video call with this person to see how they look. So and now it's automatic thing, you know, when you get the request from the new potential volunteer, you automatically suggest to have a Zoom chat. Luckily, usually this is a positive response. So I have to say that since the lockdown, lots of things change, and definitely into more positive, let's say, in our organization.
Thanks a lot for that, Carol. Can we go to Nikki now? Hi, Nikki. Your mic's on or off.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki from Caring and Sharing. in charity organization in Rochdale here. So regarding the volunteer, I think at the moment we have 8 permanent good ones, that they are very, very good. But the problem we have at the beginning is some of them, they don't speak English. And we have a lot of difficulties about this. Normally, when we see face-to-face, we used to talk with body language and like, hey, you put this, you do this. But with the Zoom, it's a little bit difficult at the beginning. And some of them, they are not even used to Zoom. So like we need to train about 2 or 3 of them to know how to use it. Then some of them did not even have internet. They can't afford the money to get internet, to be on internet all the time. So in the beginning, we find this very, very hard and difficult. But when we overcome it, it's very lovely because we're able to do a lot of training. We attend a lot of training, a lot of meetings, something that we cannot even achieve when we are moving around. Especially for me, I've got a lot of training and having a lot of contact with people. So to end everything, I can say in the beginning, I find it difficult, but now I'm kind of enjoying it because it's from one Zoom meeting, even I'm getting fed up now, from one Zoom meeting to another, and it really, really helps us. So regarding the volunteers, they have gained a lot. They have learned a lot of things in this short time. So, and for us, I think we will still stick with the Zoom, even if things go back to normal. Definitely we will still have a Zoom meeting maybe once in a month, definitely.
Thanks a lot for that update, Nikki. Thank you very much. Can we just go to Angela Brown now, please?
Hello. Hi, sorry, I had my video off because I was also doing a bit of housework while I was listening. You've got to fit hours in the day, haven't you? Yeah, so I'm Angela, but I set up a mutual aid group in Haywood. We've got we've got 40 people who signed up to volunteer. Not all of them volunteer all the time, so some have only done 1 or 2 things. So one of the biggest things I'm thinking about is there's loads of people now that have never in our group that have never done anything before, volunteering or anything in the community, and I just kind of don't want them to lose the bug of it, and I don't feel I don't know, qualified enough to I don't know, I feel like it's a bit of a responsibility, like this is their open door into this new world of giving back to the community, and I don't feel qualified enough to take them on that journey. So I'm a lot of the time what I'm trying to think is I've got to know a lot of people, and I'm trying to think what groups they might like to volunteer at, you know, proper groups, and trying to sort of like think what recommendations where they might like to actually sign up, which would keep them on, or also trying to think what we can do as our group as this crisis continues or winds down or whatever. And so just listening in really to get some ideas.
Well, knowing a little bit about you, Angela, which I've been privileged to know a little bit about you, I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I think it'd be a shame for the group to stop. And I think that with some help from different training organisations and stuff, you can keep going. I'd certainly like to see that because I think you do a really fantastic fantastic job there. Sarah, do you want to come in?
Well, yeah, I was just going to add to that, Angela. I think that's great that you mentioned linking to other organisations as well. I think that's something that we're going to send out a little blog as well about retaining volunteers. And one of the things we talk about is linking to other organisations and seeing if there's a need there if you do end up with surplus volunteers. but then there's also, we've got training coming up in a few weeks called What's Next for Mutual Aid, to talk about if they do, if you do want to constitute, if you do want to think about actually what your mission is, what you want to deliver, and you become a group. But then also, Phil is our volunteer coordinator, so his role is to match volunteers to organisations as well. So don't feel like you have to do that linking on your own. So yeah, there's loads of different avenues that we can definitely support you on.
And just a final one on this, and I know Matt's on the call. Don't cover your face, Matt. Would you like to just tell us from your perspective about how you've coped in this time, and with what the new norm may be for Matt? I know that this may go into other avenues, but let's give it a go. Go on, Matt.
No, I came onto this meeting expecting it to be something different, and I found it really interesting. I came to look at what training. Sorry, I'm a volunteer for those that don't know. I came to see what volunteering opportunities there were. I was also working on a project which was going to be working with, well, hopefully creating more volunteers, which unfortunately has come to a stop due to all this. And I kind of wonder, I've been wondering about how I will be able to progress with that in the foreseeable future, because I anticipate it will be quite some time until we'll be having the type of meetings where everyone gets together, probably April next year, if not later. So I need to think of different ways of creating a new norm. And I've also gone through, it's made me aware of the digital exclusion that people have out there. It's mentioned by Nikki also. And I found myself without a laptop and I was lost. I used to be meeting people every single day, and suddenly I had nothing. And I'd actually emailed Suzanne a day before it was brought on to a meeting that they have on the Fridays about it. And then it became a subject from there. So outside of volunteers, it's the issues that we have as a society with digital exclusion, especially the fact that is now going to be the way that we are going to communicate for quite some time, and we need to help people out there who don't have the means to do that. So yeah, and also if I had set up time previously, there would have been more people there that could have been able to help, which I tried to keep it out because at the moment I don't know where that's going to go for a little while. But it's just thoughts that I've had along the way. But it's good to see organisations getting together. That's the main emphasis. You come into different meetings and everything. It's to network, to get to know other organisations, find other ways that I can help other people, and ways that I can find help as well. So it's good to be here.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I'm getting the hurry up from different sources because we've got a certain amount of time booked on the call. I quickly want to go through some some points on rewarding volunteers. There is 2 slides. I won't ask Hayley to put them up because I've got them in hard copy here, so I'll just take you through them. And a lot of this is very, very simple stuff, but it's the little bits that really do make a difference. So it's got things like jot down a little note, leave it on their computer, just saying how much you value what they're doing. Take time, take them for a coffee, even in your office or whatever, or just to a coffee place, just to have a chat with them, find out how they're doing. Make them kind of understand that what their role is and what difference their role is making to your organization. Once they finish a shift, we've been called. More people are coming on there. Once they've kind of finished a shift or whatever, just before they go, just pull them to one side and thank them for the day. Thank them for what they've done that day. It makes a huge difference to a volunteer if you take the time out just to thank somebody. Yeah, whether you do it by Facebook, whether you do it by Twitter, whether you do it by Instagram or whatever means that you use, Just taking that 5 minutes to thank a volunteer makes a massive, massive difference. Involve them in your organization, involve them in kind of decisions that your organization's taking. Yeah, so if you're thinking of changing direction, if you're thinking of doing a new service, involve them in that conversation. Like I said, invite them for a coffee or brunch. Sarah knows this, that every time that we have a one-to-one, I said to Sarah, shall we go for a coffee? Because I think we should go for a coffee. Yeah. Ask if you've got any really good volunteers, ask them to get involved with training new volunteers. Yeah, so give them some more responsibility. One thing that we've heard all through this is about there's a lot involved with taking a volunteer on. There's a lot involved with keeping track of volunteers, whether it's policies and procedures, whether it's training, whether it's this, whether it's that. There's a lot involved. And one aspect I always say to somebody is, what about getting a volunteer to do this for you? Now, when you're talking about flexibility and when you talk about home working, can anyone tell me why a volunteer couldn't do most of what we've said from home? We can certainly do all the policies and procedures from home. You can certainly do all the looking for training from home. You can make any notes you want to make through from Zoom meetings from home. So why couldn't a volunteer do this from home as a way of forward thinking, as a way of going forward? Another thing is be mindful not to overwork a volunteer. It's great sometimes to have a new person in the office and you say, oh, well, they can do this, they can do this. Just be careful of what you ask a volunteer to do. Obviously, it's going to be in the volunteer role, but just make sure you're not kind of overloading. And the last thing I say about rewarding volunteers is speak to other organisations to find out how they do it. I've mentioned RCT a couple of times. RCT, you watch the videos and they'll call at someone's house and give them a bunch of flowers or give them a box of fruits or something, just to say thank you, or a certificate. It's a great way of showing appreciation to your volunteers. Surprise them. Yeah. So,
yeah, Phil, I was going to say a certificate. They love a certificate. And just a birthday card, a simple birthday card, I think that they thought about. So, yeah, they all really just appreciate that.
Yeah, they do. Whatever it is, you'll be amazed. Just in little things make a huge difference to a volunteer. Now, the last slide. Do you want to just put the last slide up, Hayley? There is a bit of a lag doing this. Right. The last slide is something that we use at meetings when it appears again. That's it. It's the evaluation thing. And when I first saw this, I thought to myself, "Oh God, I don't want anyone commenting on what I've just said." You know, it's a funny concept. But what you do is you learn so much from people that you're talking to about the way you do your training. So this is what we use at our training courses, and we have 3 big sheets, and we said, right, okay, write something on there that you think was a waste of time today and I'm going to throw away. And I've had comments in there like too many biscuits, it was too warm, there was not enough coffee. I've all got all kinds of comments in there. one post-it from the suitcase, something that you'll take away, a real nugget of information that you've kind of picked up from that training and that you can think that you're going to use. Something that's touched your heart, something that you kind of said, yeah, I really do feel that is working or whatever, and that just something that you've kind of learned from the training. So that's the training finished. I believe we're now going into like a little bit of a Q&A session. So has anyone got any questions?
I've got a comment, Phil, if that's okay. I really enjoyed that. I found it really useful. Just to kind of pick up on the value in volunteers. I was in a webinar recently around co-production and making sure everything in the current climate is inclusive and how you can make things more inclusive. And something like that never really occurred to me, and it kind of ties in with volunteers, is that if you haven't got a laptop and you're using a phone with data, thinking about how you pay your volunteer expenses for being involved virtually, because they've estimated that 1 hour's meeting uses about a gig of data, and that's about approximately £5.15, apparently, quite specific, rather than approximate, but £5.15 in cash. So if someone is being asked to do something remotely, just to kind of be aware that, is it something they can afford to do? Is it leaving them out of pocket? Not everyone has unlimited data and things like that. It's just something I'd never thought about. I as well as this job, I have another role where I work with service users, and I'm struggling to get them to use Zoom and use technology, and maybe that's a stumbling block that I've not thought about. It's something I'm going to take to them and ask them, but just thinking, if even though they're working virtually, they may still need some expenses paid, and how you think about that and how you ask that question.